What is up, everybody? This is Alex from IHE TV, and I happen to rewatch The Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring Extended Edition, and I haven't watched this movie in quite a few years, not since we did the whole trilogy on Sardonicast, and what was that, 5 years ago. And I have the same experience every time where they sit so positively in my head when I get around to rewatching them, which used to be a yearly exercise for me. Don't know why I've left it this long, but I'll think, there's no way it's as good as I remember, and every single time I'm proven wrong. Every time. This was a lightning in a bottle phenomena that only could have happened at the time it did, the way it did, the location it was set at, the filmmakers involved, the limitations of the technology, beautifully blending this transition period of kind of earlier, rougher CG that was way more limited, and they had to get creative with it and combine it with all of these tried and true tested techniques of miniatures and camera trickery and so much inventiveness, and there's just something spellbinding about the whole thing. So I got a copy of this open, and I'm just gonna scroll through the movie and just see what comes to my head and just kind of gush about what this movie means to me. So let's get into it. And even if there are some rougher things that I'll get to in time, I think it's aged beautifully. Time is only being kinder and kinder to it, and a real love letter and ode to its source material, even with the changes it does make. The opening is such an effective screenwriting decision, and I remember in the behind the scenes, of which I've watched all of, that were attached to the DVDs, and I'd really recommend, I think they're all over YouTube now. They mentioned how this wasn't in the original idea for the film, but how crucial it wound up being as far as setting the stakes, inviting you into the world, and establishing a lot of the base elements. Because the breadth of the world Tolkien created is so vast and is intimidating as a concept to apply to a film. Like, it's incredible that they even managed to achieve this, let alone at the level of quality that they got it to. All the costuming, production design is immense, and every single time I'm blown away how the film is basically a string of iconic moments just bound together. These scenes are memorable because not only of so much of the dialogue and songs and what makes those books charming is put on the big screen, but the adaptation is so creative and well done and sincere. There is this deep sincerity to this film that feels so pure and convincing every time I watch it. It really is the peak of fantasy storytelling for me, and is the gold standard. When you learn about the technology they basically had to invent in order to pull off these huge battle scenes, and sure, they could do it better today, and certain elements of the visual effects do improve with each movie. This is obviously the oldest one, so the scrappiness kind of had to be the proof of concept and lay the foundation for what they were trying to do. But even if there is the odd shot that looks a bit aged, you'll see something like this where it's just so many extras, so much production effort and dedication, all of the prosthetics and sound design, and the music, oh my god. Just everyone working at their A game, their S tier game. And something I really appreciate rewatching this again and again, and seeing more of Peter Jackson's earlier, kind of campier, exploitational horror stuff. How much of that personality and inventiveness is woven into the filmmaking here, and how well it complements a big epic like this. I'm talking about the expressive camera work, or the scarier moments where you have like skeletons and ghosts pulling you underwater, and little horror flashes of like when Bilbo's face goes all horrifying in that one little shot. The color palette and the tones of color they use to express and communicate certain locations or scenes, and really gives it this sense of progression or change, where you'll have a washed out battle scene where things are grayer, things are more dire and serious, but then when you're seeing the environment or Hobbiton, it's lit and presented completely differently. It's positive, it's nice, you want to be there, and it makes it feel like the grand adventure it is. I can't think of a better adventure movie, really. And with how many characters are in there, how distinct they all feel, even when you have like 4 main character hobbits that, if you blur your eyes, seem pretty similar from like a costume or character level. They're all so distinct, and their personalities are fleshed out in such a fun, engaging, and empathetic way. And that sense of realism at the heart of it really does sell the goofier stuff, because there's a lot of goofy stuff in there. There's big ideas, you got dragons and orcs and halflings, but it just fits, it just makes sense. And of course, for me, there is a baked-in nostalgic element, not just because of my age when these films came out, but also I was born in New Zealand, I consider it my home, and so seeing this story that I love presented in this environment is like, it's like perfectly made for me. It feels like it was made for me, can't believe the accomplishment of it. And I fear we're never going to see anything quite like it again. Because I was thinking about this in terms of like, it's not like we haven't had big scale sci-fi or fantasy movies of quality since then. Like we recently had the second Dune movie. And while I think it's excellent, there isn't the heart, there isn't the emotion that this film is able to bring out of me in the same way. There is kind of a coldness there. Maybe that's Villeneuve's kind of style, not speaking to me in the same way, but damn, just seeing this tech, I can hear these images. The musical flares, all the leitmotifs. I'll often just listen to songs on the soundtrack. Howard Shore did such an insane job. Like, cast is perfect. Establishing Hobbiton and giving them their little quirks. And to me, are this symbol of a simple, better life. A romanticized life. Where people are just families, they farm, they love things that grow, they're silly, a little bit simple, but you buying into that environment is what sets the stakes and creates that powerful juxtaposition of these little characters that are out of their element and yet are so important to everything falling into place. Yeah, the musical flair when Bilbo mentions the things that grow, that's always connected with me, and I do love growing things and plants and this sort of thing. I always find this scene quite incredible where it's like, we haven't seen Frodo or Gandalf yet, but this meeting implies so much history and so much rapport that is mostly communicated through the music and the chemistry that these actors have. And they were all, as I was saying, all on their S tier. Everyone's just in sync. Everyone collected around this source material and just wanted it to be the best it could. And there was a kind of fellowship of the cast and crew that gives it this innate sincerity. I absolutely adore it. Everything in this movie is a meme in the best way possible. In fact, it's one of the earliest examples I remember of positive memes that weren't making fun of it. It's not like Morbius or something frivolous. It comes from a place of love. People share the lines. It's so memorable and quotable and funny and charming and has this huge range of emotions and feelings attached to it. It's idyllic. It makes you stop thinking about your own problems. It's a real fantasy. God, it looks so good. Throughout the whole runtime, I was just saying out loud, how does this look so good? It looks so good. The forced perspective stuff, everything they built, the carpentry, it's wild. Yeah, this, again, on the forced perspective, it's unreal. And considering how long it is, it's extremely well-paced and fun to watch, and never feels like it's lingering. And I even feel that way, it's not in this movie, but like loads of people have an issue with the Ents and that kind of thing. I love all of it. There's nothing I would pluck from it. The only real true criticism I have is the odd visual effect shot, which I don't think is the biggest deal. When it just works and clicks as well as it does, you can forgive things like that, especially considering the time period it came out, the scale of the production, how if you lined up every single shot and I put a red X through the ones I didn't love, it would be outweighed by all of the wonderful stuff that you wouldn't even think about in a negative way for a moment. Ian McKellen's performance is so caring and delicate, but he can be kind of intimidating and has this implied history and all this texture, the implied texture, with Saruman giving him grief over smoking too much weed, basically, and forgetting things. He's this lovely balance of being a little bit aloof, but he's dancing at the party, but he'll take things seriously when he needs to. There's a gravitas to him, as there is to most people. Love the shot variety. There's a real reverence to the ring itself. It feels like a character. It feels like an intimidating presence whenever it's on screen. Really communicates the burden of it, the temptation of it, the symbolism of it. It's one of those osmosis metaphors where I just feel like everyone says about how Tolkien didn't like metaphors, but I feel like it applies to so many concepts that makes the story more relatable. And you can kind of project a lot of things onto it. Do you want it to represent power? Do you want it to represent addiction? Or there's so many ways you can read it and find new ways to enjoy it and break it down and tear it apart. I love all the tricks, like for the wide shots. The hobbits tend to be real little people who are featured a lot in the behind the scenes stuff. Again, shouting that out. You learn so much about the filmmaking process from the way all that stuff is explored in those behind the scenes. Check it out, watch it if you haven't. It's so like iconic, this trilogy, that yeah, all the behind the scenes stuff is memed and shared to this day in the same way. Vilve, ver, vigs, or whatever, and all this stuff.
When will you wear wigs?
blown away by how good the modeling and the mixture and the combination of all of it, and how distinct all the different designs are that communicate, like the Wood Elves versus Rivendell versus Gondor versus Hobbiton. It's so fucking cool, man. The flashbacks to the intro to help keep things organized and easy to understand. It doesn't feel like it's condescending you. It feels like it's helping you along with how much it's trying to communicate. Love the lore stuff. Every time Gandalf picks up an old book or is going through these old archives, there's a real feeling of age and wisdom, and like this is a lived-in, expansive world, which obviously the books are. I think it communicates that well. Love the ring wraiths. Genuinely scary with the way they're emphasized with the music attached to them and the sound design, that squeal. I want to party with these guys. Love the humor that they bring out of it. This is a pint and all this stuff. I love how from this scene, as I was just saying about the way it's lit and how the colors and the environment accentuate the mood of a scene, like how much things escalate from almost perfectly the half an hour point once the party is over, when Gandalf kind of realizes what is going on and how serious it is that this ring is now kind of his problem. It's a lot of what's implied that makes the storytelling so effective, with Gandalf expressing how it would be a calamity if he was tempted by the ring, and I love seeing the way that manifests through all the different characters and what it says about them and how complicated it makes things, as well as justifying the fact that it basically has to be Frodo's job, without feeling like a corny chosen one type thing. There's almost something deterministic about it, despite the fairly black and white good versus evil narrative at the heart of it. The variety of environments, the escalation of it, little character moments like this is the furthest I've ever been. Oh, it's so stunning. And of course the world building that's so cleverly plotted out and might just seem like a little, oh, this is an adventure movie, they're just stumbling into this or that, but the way it all loops back on itself and enforces things or wraps up character arcs, it's so fucking clever, man. When Saruman comes in and they have like a gravitas off, great example of just two legends just making something that's already brilliant on the page somehow even better. It's so fucking weird that like one of the scariest, biggest companies in the world is named after this MacGuffin, Palantir. And that is a cool thing about this whole universe, is the language, the way it's used, all these different dialects and Elvish and Dwarvish. So we even call it, I don't know. It just fleshes everything out, makes it feel real. Really like this wizard fight, especially when he has Gandalf on the floor spinning him around. It's a disturbing image. I don't know how they managed to avoid making the hobbits like, they're never annoying to me in any way, despite the comedic stylings. Love the dolly zoom here. So cool. There's so much depth to every image and real stakes and tension. It feels like there's real danger to this world. God, just really analyzing the frames without paying attention to the story or being distracted by anything is so admirable, with the way they use the lighting, the way everything's framed. It's quite incredible. Love this shot with all the ring wraiths going past with the swords in the same angle. It's scary. When I saw this when I was young, this was like genuinely freaky. And even though this is only 1/3 of the main story, there is a really nice through line with obviously the forming of the Fellowship and that whole group that kind of gets bigger and all add a different flavor with what they bring to the crew. Look at this location shooting. It's just, because New Zealand up until this point had never really been used to this scale before in a film, it does make it feel otherworldly. Fantastical, because it is, the environment there is unbelievable, and it's such a nice thing to be attached to your country. I mentioned the growing things and the gardening and the love of, the love of things that grow. I've always liked that environmental message at the heart of it, with trees and the commentary on the Industrial Revolution. Weathertop's such a cool image. That is kind of just what it's going to devolve into at a certain point, is me just saying, oh, this part was cool. Oh, this part was cool. Hang on, this part was awesome. Oh, this part, yeah, how could I forget about this? Oh my god, it's all so good. I'm like a genuine fanboy for this stuff. This fly-through with the miniature combined with the CG, oh, it's so good. Here's some more of that kind of horror imagery and direction coming in there with the Uruk-hai being born out of the weird goo sludge. Poor Frodo getting his ass kicked constantly. He's like stabbed multiple times in this movie. And loads of people hate Frodo and think he's like, there's something against him, or that like, oh, if I was in his position, I'd do so much better than him. And I think the film and the books do a good job of communicating that not only is it thanks to the whole Fellowship working together, but also the innate corrupting nature of the ring would bring anyone to their knees. It just happens to be Frodo that was kind of at the wrong place, right time type thing. With everyone on its face obviously preferring Sam, who I love as well. But he's a more traditional hero, you know? He gets all the hero moments, the speeches and things like that. But I think Elijah gives him a relatability and complexity that makes him a really good protagonist. Get off Frodo's back, man. All the helicopter shots as well. these real locations. Like, what a ball ache this would have been to film. This is a moment that holds up very well on a visual effects level, with the water with the horses kind of in it. Still looks awesome. Very cool moment. The fight on top of this looks fantastic. The way he's being dangled off the edge. I mean, it looks so good. So at a point where a lot of movies will be wrapping up or winding down, this moment is when everyone gets together and things really get moving, giving some nice lore, some more perspectives, setting up how much of a corrupting force the ring is, and how the race of men are not really valued or trusted because of things like this. With Boromir, my guy. Maybe my favorite character from this movie, especially with the added context you get with him in the extended editions of the movies that follow. He's such an important character to make the group dynamic really come together, with this tension of him being framed as the one who's most likely to betray and set up as, you can't trust this dude. But where they take that and the heroic way they finish his story, all these softer kind of pastel tones and lighting for the stuff in Rivendell. And if I just skip ahead to a different type of scene, the environment is so cool. It's the combination that really sells it, the combination of all these elements. There's a whole section on the behind the scenes about helicoptering everyone up, and look at the payoff though. It was so worth doing, because now they have this timeless classic. And with the Fellowship being so big, you have all these different perspectives to explore. Having a dwarf and an elf, and giving Gimli a chance to shine, with him wanting to meet with his cousin, who he thinks is all well and good down there. The inclusion of riddles and songs is such a big part of the book, especially that musical element. When Gandalf first comes in, all the elven singing and stuff like that. It's just a world you want to exist in. Here's another horror escalation with, all this scary, slippery goblin mayhem. It's remarkable how a lot of these big creatures hold up, with some of the weaker stuff being sometimes the way things interact with each other. Look a bit kind of plasticky, as a lot of CG of this time was, but very much a nitpick. Love this shot, integrating this miniature to communicate the scale of the cave. You really feel it. It's a scary environment, it's tense. One of my favorite sections in the movie, I think. The CG for Gollum gets a lot better in the subsequent movies, but it's one of the elements where you can see the limitations of the technology at the time. They could obviously do an Avatar tier, or even like the first Hobbit movie has an incredible detailed Gollum in there. Just a shame about those movies, huh? The music here really sells the history and the scope of it. All this stuff is tragic for Gimli. This scary book, with it all building up into this huge action scene. With the cave troll, which we should get to, because I think it's the visual effect that probably holds up the worst in the movie. Mostly because of the way other characters have to interact with it. There's a lot of kind of rubbery CG elements interacting with each other, which, they could obviously do a lot better today. But again, I think overall a nitpick for how much this film gets right. Love how dark and dreary everything is down here and kind of washed out and grey. But then, I was just criticizing the cave troll CG. When you get to the Balrog, this thing looks great. The fire effects look amazing. It's scary. All the sound design around it is amazing. The build up to it, the whole concept of the dwarves digging too deep and kind of being greedy is a fun, fancy idea. Yeah, this whole section is, what can you even say at this point? Very cool creature. With the whole fly you fools moment being this emotional highlight of the movie for me. The way everyone reacts is so sincere. And give them a moment for pity's sake, but still having that urgency of no, we can't really stop for long. We got to keep moving. So well done. And obviously the music that plays there. And a big kind of turning point for Frodo, where it feels like oh fuck moment for him, as far as there are real stakes and consequences that have been thrust onto me, and I've really just got to kind of step up. And you feel it from his character. You get a little bit of reprieve with the Wood Elves and Galadriel. Nice ethereal section of the movie, with the song they sing for Gandalf, and more dreamy kind of blues and this blown out sort of lighting. Gives it a nice effect. Get a bit more characterization of Boromir, as well as seeing another powerful character being tempted with the power of the ring. One of my favorite sections is the in-between point where they say goodbye to these characters and go on the kayaks while they're still being pursued. A great moment of communicating that scale, the huge statues. This stuff hasn't aged a day. Great scene with Boromir. Sean Bean gets some of the most fun range for his character to go through, as far as what he can bring as an actor, and he does an amazing job not feeling like a mustache-twirling villain. He's someone with a mission of his own, with something to prove, and you really sense his frustration, as well as the temptation of what he's brought to, and his regret, and the short amount of time he has to redeem himself after this moment. He gets a really satisfying arc. Building up to this big fight scene in the ruins, and kind of the last moment the Fellowship are together, and they don't see each other for such a long time after this. There is something bittersweet, and of course Boromir's sacrifice, rounding off his character arc, leaving him a hero. Some good shit right there. Then the story has the very difficult job of splintering off these characters into their groups, and finding an end place that feels satisfying but also intriguing, and I think they do that nicely. You've had your big action scene, the sacrifice, the let's hunt some orc line, very cool place to end it, and just starts the whole itch of me wanting to rewatch the trilogy. I don't know how you could just watch this and not want to continue. So heartfelt, so sincere. I just absolutely adore it. And I feel like depending on the day, I'm going to have a different answer as to which one is my favorite. I think they all do spectacular things. I think their decision to film them all so close to each other in one big burst was not only cost effective, but gave them a sense of cohesion and consistency that a lot of films struggle to get when they're sequels. And I mean, look at what happened to Stranger Things, but we're not going to go on that. As far as a rating, perfect 5 stars. It's a rare thing from me, but it's what it deserves. It's the ultimate normie masterpiece. If you're a Sardonicast listener, I think I'll always love this movie and find new things to appreciate about it every time I rewatch it, the tens of times I have at this point. Absolutely adore it. Let me know your thoughts on the movie. I've gone on long enough. I'll see you on the next vid. Bye!